Welcome to another Firearm Freedom YouTube live stream. We are back. We are back again for our Sunday live stream. Guys, I'm getting really excited about these live streams. I'm digging them. I'm liking them. We got a lot of people watching every single week. And we also have a lot of people watching after the fact, which is really, really cool. So as always, if you guys aren't used to the YouTube live streams, especially if you're not used to them and you're watching them after the fact, don't worry. The first 10 minutes is going to be kind of letting a bunch of folks get in to watch and check out the live stream. So if you're watching this after the fact, just kind of always remember that if you want to get right to the meat and potatoes of the live stream, just go ahead and fast forward a good like maybe 5 or 10 minutes. This live stream is going to be somewhat of an interesting one. We're going to be tackling a pretty massive topic, and hopefully I'll be able to answer a bunch of questions for you guys live here on YouTube, which is what these live streams are about. We are going to be talking about everything in regards to suppressors, everything about suppressors. The meme and potatoes, absolutely, Mike. So guys, quick shout out before we get this live stream started. As always, there are going to be links in the description after this live stream ends to all of the Firearm Freedom accounts. We now have a Discord server that is live. It's still going super strong, super active. I'm really pumped about it. So if you guys want to check out that Discord server, and if you're about the Discord servers or whatever, go ahead and check out that first link in the description. There's also links down there to the Firearm Freedom merchandise store where you can get some awesome, sweet Firearm Freedom merchandise like this shirt that I'm rocking here. We have some awesome stickers, hoodies, everything else like that. It's a blast, and anything you purchase from that store greatly supports everything I do here on the channel. And that's going to be about it. Actually, no, I'll throw in a reminder to subscribe as well. I think they call that a call to action, if I'm not mistaken. But yes, subscribe if you are enjoying the content that's coming out here on YouTube. YouTube consistently, it's kind of crazy. Like every other month, YouTube, I feel like, just shadow bans the living hell out of my channel because I'll have a decrease every month. Everything stays the same, videos stay the same, whatever else, but I'll have a decrease in views and subscribers and ad revenue from monetization and everything like that by about 180%, and then it'll increase by about 180% the next month. So I don't know why that happens. This would be one of those months where the views are down incredibly low. So if you guys are enjoying the content, remember to subscribe, remember to comment. That really helps me out. And yeah, absolutely. What's the whole process to obtain a suppressor? Time frame for your tax stamp to go through? Ho, ho, ho. Do I have some answers for you guys? Let's get into the meat and potatoes, about meme and potatoes, I should say, about suppressors. And I will absolutely answer your question about, kind of, I want to reread it and make sure I got it right. But what's the whole process? I will answer that question. Actually, moving down the list here, I got my green little notebook of goodness here that we're going to be starting about. Guys, at any point in time that you're watching the live stream and you have a question about something that I may have gone over in the beginning of the live stream or whatever else, don't worry, throw it in. I'll try to still give you a quick answer, and then we'll go from there. So first and foremost, I want to start off for hardcore beginners and then go to more advanced stuff with suppressors. So we're going to start off really low-key and just slowly, incrementally work our way up to the more challenging things about suppressors and everything like that. So first and foremost, what are suppressors, right? You'll hear a lot of people use the term suppressors. You'll hear other people use the term silencers. Silencers, that kind of term was made big by movies. A lot of anti-gunners use the word silencers, and it's one of those very odd situations where actually silencer and suppressor can be used interchangeably. So a lot of people don't really understand that. A lot of people will watch a video about suppressors and they will comment saying, hey man, those are actually silencers. You shouldn't be calling them suppressors. Or somebody will say silencers. Somebody else will chime in and say, hey man, that's an anti-gun term. Don't use silencers, they're suppressors. So let me kind of alleviate that real quick. The actual one legal definition of those items is silencers, believe it or not. So as far as any sort of legal definition, it is defined as a silencer and not a suppressor. However, suppressor would be more technically correct. You are not silencing the noise, you are suppressing the noise and making it a little bit quieter than normal. So, in my eyes, once again, those terms can actually be used interchangeably. It would not be like the term assault rifle, which is just not even factually correct. Silencer actually goes all the way back to the original maker of silencers or suppressors, which was Hiram Maxim. And in, I believe, 1914, Hiram Maxim made the muffler for a car. So if you guys didn't already know, a silencer is almost an identical design back in the day. It was an identical design to the muffler of a car. So those two things kind of go hand in hand. I don't know anything about vehicles myself, but if you guys out there are mechanics or something like that, and you're familiar with how a muffler works, you're going to have an absolutely solid idea on how suppressors work. But the reason why I bring up Hiram Maxim and the original suppressor is because Hiram Maxim himself, the creator of suppressors, actually did not call them suppressors. He called them silencers. The first option on the market for sale for public use was not called a Maxim suppressor. It was called a Maxim silencer. So that is why you see a lot of companies nowadays, Silencer Shop, Silencerco, Dead Air Silencers. So that name is actually used interchangeably. So getting that kind of out of the way right there. I just want to catch up. So Silencer Shop has made the process easy. Just buy the tax stamp and the suppressor online, then go to the local shop and with the Silencer Shop kiosk to do your fingerprints. Absolutely. Once you do the Silencer Shop process, once you don't have to do it again, you can do everything from your bedroom because the store info digitally to you. Absolutely. So we'll touch on that in a bit as well as far as purchasing cans and everything like that. But for the most part, you could think of silencers or suppressors as buying a firearm. They are going to have different calibers, just like guns. So if you're looking for a new 9mm handgun, you can actually find a brand new 9mm suppressor as well. Unlike a lot of firearms out there, as you can imagine, a suppressor is actually going to be able to kind of broad stroke a couple of different calibers in one a lot of the time. I always recommend, absolutely, if you are thinking about going down the suppressor road, to buy with versatility in mind first for your first suppressor. I see absolutely no reason to buy your first suppressor and limit yourself by buying a 9mm suppressor. What I mean by that is a 9mm suppressor, one that has a bore diameter of 9mm, actually can only shoot things like 9mm, 380, 32 ACP, and a couple of other odd calibers in there. If it's user serviceable, then it can also shoot 22. But you're far more limited versus if you go with something like a 40 cal can or a 45 cal can. And what that would allow you to do is really broaden the spectrum for a wide variety of different calibers. So whenever you're looking at your first suppressor and you're unsure what to do, best thing to do at first is to get a suppressor that is going to be able to shoot a wide variety of different calibers, so that way you don't have to worry about just being able to use it on one gun when you waited all this time, paid money, whatever else. So suppressor is going to suppress the noise of your firearm. In most states, suppressors are going to be legal. However, I believe it's only around 45 states, somewhere around there. I'm going off memory, so that's probably not accurate. But it's not all 50 states that suppressors are legal. So unfortunately, chances are, if you live in a state that has magazine bans, assault weapons bans, and different things like that, first and foremost, I'm so sorry. I feel bad for you, and I know what it is that you're going through because I'm from upstate New York myself. But if you live in a state like that, chances are you're probably not going to be able to be allowed to own suppressors along with other NFA items as well. We've touched on the NFA actually in one of the first live streams here on YouTube. So with that being said, you guys are pretty familiar with the NFA now if you've been following these live streams, but suppressors are under the same national registry as machine guns, short-barreled rifles, short-barreled shotguns, any other weapons, destructive devices, and so on. They're all in the same class. This is kind of ironic because the ATF themselves actually do not even legally consider a suppressor a firearm, yet somehow it wound up on the National Firearms Act. Don't know how that happened, but gotta love unconstitutional gun laws. When you figure out that you're wanting a suppressor, you think you want to go down that road, the process is going to begin first, in my opinion, by locating the suppressor that you want. You want to figure out exactly what one you want before you start going down this process. I would say probably one of the worst things you could do is randomly walk into a gun shop, get the idea that day that like, hey, I saw a suppressor in a movie and I think I want to buy one. And you walk into a gun shop and trust that the gun sales associate, if the shop sells suppressors, is going to lead you in the right direction. You pay all the money, they walk you through the process, and you leave that day hoping for the best. Guys, this is not a good idea. There are many gun shop employees that unfortunately don't really know much about suppressors, and even in shops that sell suppressors, there's a good chance that the person that you get it just really doesn't know. So it's a good idea to do a lot of research into this beforehand. In fact, when I would have people at one of the other gun shops that I worked at come up to me saying, hey, I think I might want a suppressor, I would actually encourage them not to buy that day, but to go home, do some research, figure out exactly what it is they want, and then come on back after that research, after I gave some recommendations myself. And once they really made that decision that they want to go down that road, then we would facilitate the process. Suppressors can range pretty dramatically in price point. When you're looking at suppressors online, you have pretty solid places like Silencer Shop that was mentioned in one of the earlier live comments there. Silencer Shop is a company that kind of electronically streamlined the NFA process. They made it quite a bit easier from the purchasing side to think about going about buying your first suppressor. You can actually buy your tax stamp right on Silencer Shop's website. You can buy your suppressor right on the Silencer Shop website. You can actually do your fingerprints, and you can do all of the paperwork that you need to do electronically on one of the Silencer Shop kiosks. With that being said, I will tell you guys that depending on the shop, I have seen Silencer Shop orders get messed up, not because of Silencer Shop, but because there are a lot of moving parts on the back end with the gun shop that is affiliated with Silencer Shop. So Silencer Shop might do everything right, but if the gun shop makes a mistake, loses track of which order came in when, you actually might run into some issues with your paperwork not being submitted. A good idea, as a side note, then we're going to get back to the main talking points about Silencer Shop. If you go through that process, it is very, very important that you wait for a signature from Silencer Shop in a DocuSign email. If you have not gotten that signature yet, you need to call Silencer Shop and you need to call the gun shop that you did the paperwork with. You should receive that signature within the first week to 2 weeks, and be very, very cautious with your email. Always be checking emails, because if that signature is missed, I have seen situations where somebody has actually waited a year and a half only to find out that their Silencer Shop order was never submitted, and they have to redo all of the paperwork a year later. If everything goes well with Silencer Shop, generally it's a very, very smooth and streamlined process, which is good. Reverting all the way back around to the basic steps here, price points with suppressors range dramatically, just like guns. With suppressors, they have very affordable cans on the market that are sometimes $99, sometimes $150, and then they have very, very pricey suppressors on the market that can surpass the $1,500 price point. And a lot of people ask, well, what are you really getting here that's so much better or so much worse with this price point? Doesn't it ultimately just end up being like a muffler on a car, slap it on the end, and we're good to go? A lot of people don't necessarily know. What it generally comes down to is the strength of the suppressor, and not only that, but generally the user serviceability, and then also the ability to have a bunch of aftermarket accessories and mounting options for that suppressor. An example, there's a lot of really cheap suppressors on the market out there, maybe 99, 150 bucks. But the downfall with those suppressors is a lot of the time there is not a wide variety of mounting options for a bunch of different guns. That might just have kind of what everybody has in their mind of a traditional thought of a suppressor, which is what's called direct thread, meaning the suppressor just has threads in the back, thread it right on the gun, and we're good to go. The downfall with this is very limited to only a specific number of firearms that are actually going to be able to work with that mounting option, and a limited amount of firearms for that thread pitch as well without having to get extra adapters. So what you're paying for here is user serviceability moving forward, and being able to take the suppressor apart, clean it, and everything like that. And then also you are getting the ability to have different mounting options as we move into the more expensive suppressors. Aside from mounting options, you are also getting really good guarantee of a warranty as well. The suppressor market, the entire suppressor world, has been taking hits left and right over the past couple of years, really. I mean, they have been on a crazy roller coaster ride, and I can't even tell you guys how many beginning suppressor companies have taken a dive and actually ended business entirely after a couple months to a year, and sure enough, their really cheap suppressors were selling on Gunbroker for even cheaper. This is a downfall because if you ever have an issue with your suppressor, if you ever have a damaged part to your suppressor, you're pretty much SOL because that company is not going to be able to service it for you any longer. So with suppressors, it's not quite like a firearm. It's not something that it's easy enough to just walk back into the gun shop and say, hey, I want a replacement for this. Remember, you're paying $200 per suppressor. So if I have 5 suppressors, I have 200, 200, 200, 200, 200. So each one is another $200 tax stamp. And then on top of that, you are generally waiting. Sometimes it could be as early as 6 months, but more than likely you're going to be at around the year mark before you're able to actually take that suppressor home with you and use it. That's a big deal, and that really is a big difference when we're looking at like warranty repair. If I have a Silencerco product that gets damaged, I can send it right back to Silencerco, good to go. If I have like an AAC product that gets damaged, again, send it back to AAC, no problem. The big downfall with a really cheap, affordable, entry-level company is if they go under in a year because the suppressor market is really, really bad, and your suppressor gets a baffle strike, which means the bullet passing through it actually hits one of the baffles and destroys the inside of the can. That's it. I mean, that's pretty much it. You're going to have to send it in somewhere, call around, see what you can do, but you're going to run into a lot of issues there. I just want to read down my list here, making sure I'm still on track. I always get all over the place with these, and I ramble in the live streams a lot, so keep me on track, guys. So moving down, kind of the next big thing on the list that people ask me is which one should I get? And generally speaking, what a lot of people mean by this question is which type should I get? Suppressors are generally broken down into 3 categories. Those categories are rimfire suppressors, so like 22 suppressors, pistol suppressors, which cover pistol calibers, all pistol calibers, and then rifle suppressors. There are definitely some oddballs scattered around there that don't fit into any of those 3 categories, but those are the big 3 categories. For me personally, I have a rimfire suppressor, I have a pistol suppressor, and then I have a rifle suppressor. There are many cans on the market that can not only do rifle calibers, but can also go all the way through to all the pistol calibers and then also all of the rimfire calibers as well. The Griffin Armament Optimus really rings a bell there for being one of the most versatile suppressors on the market. That can runs generally around $900, and it can pretty much do everything. That's a big deal, and that's something that you're going to want to look into for your first suppressor. I would not recommend, once again, reverting all the way back to the beginning of the live stream, just getting like a 9mm suppressor and that's it. You are limiting yourself for, in my opinion, no reason at all. A lot of people look at suppressors and they say, well, what do I have right now? I have one 9mm Glock, and that's it. That's the only handgun I have. So I don't see any reason to go with any other caliber suppressor. I'm just going to go with the 9mm. That's all I'm ever going to use. And inevitably what happens is they get the suppressor in. They're so pumped about it. They love it. And once they get it in, they want to suppress a bunch of other guns. And the downfall is now you're stuck with just 9mm, 380. You're stuck with 32 ACP, a couple of different cartridges like that. Whereas if you get a 45 cal can, that's a wide variety of different calibers. It can also shoot 9mm, it can shoot 40, it can shoot 45, 10mm, 300 blackout, subsonic, or supersonic, depending on the can. And it shouldn't be based off the calibers that you have right now. If you have a 9mm right now, great. You might have a 40 or a 45 or a 10mm 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and ultimately you're going to have a suppressor for it. You're good to go. You don't have to worry about getting a can, and then 5 years later getting another caliber and you're like, oh crap, I'm going to have to buy another suppressor for that caliber. So I'd always recommend buying in versatility. I have a 45 cal pistol can, which is a Dead Air Ghost 45, and then I also have a 30 cal rifle suppressor, which I would always recommend for the rifle suppressor as well. Inevitably, a lot of people ask me this question right after I'm done saying that, which is, well, isn't there a big sound difference if I go with a 45 cal suppressor and I'm shooting it on a 9mm? Because obviously the hole that the bullet is going through is a lot larger. It's not as tightly fit around the bullet. I will say that this is where decibel ratings, decibel meters, which is the meter of how loud something is, lie to people, in my opinion, online and in YouTube videos and different things like that. Is there a noticeable decibel difference between those two options? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Can you hear those decibel differences to the human ear at the range? No. You just can't. You really can't. I have heard 9mm suppressors next to 45 suppressors, both shooting 9mm, and to my human ear, I could not hear a difference at all, in any way, shape, or form. And most people will reiterate that same thing. So again, there's no downside with going with a larger caliber. It's all plus side. You're getting higher versatility in calibers. Generally, you're getting more diameter on the inside of the can, which ultimately equates to a quieter suppressor because there's more room for the gases to escape within the suppressor and not outside of it. And those gases can cause a lot of that noise. The Omega 36M is another great do-it-all suppressor. Absolutely. Bobby's Veteran, I ordered an Omega 36M. It's in jail, but I can't wait to try it out. Absolutely. I agree the difference is minimal if there is at all. Yeah, I don't hear a difference. And a lot of people will say, oh, I saw on the company's website, that it has like 10% or 10 decibels less or something like that. Here's the thing about decibel ratings, guys, that a lot of you guys got to realize. Suppressors are very odd. It's very atmospherically dependent on where you are shooting that suppressor and how it sounds. The tone of the suppressor. Are you in a wooded area on a rainy day where the ground is saturated with moisture, everything is wet and damp, and there's a lot of sound break right, where trees and everything like that are keeping the sound, and that is going to give you a much quieter sound. It's going to sound much, much quieter than on a cold, hard winter day where the ground is frozen over and you're standing in the middle of a field and you let off a round with the exact same setup. It's going to sound a hell of a lot louder. If you're at the range and you're underneath an iron or a metal, like a steel shooting awning, right? That's going to be a lot louder if you crack a round off underneath that steel awning, because it's not so much about the performance of the suppressor, it's how the sound reacts off of your atmosphere. So it's bouncing down right off of that metal, and it's going to be like really, really loud. But if you walk in front of the shooting awning and you are shooting that where there's grass or gravel or something else like that, it's going to be a lot quieter. So this is where decibel ratings, they don't really matter. I don't want to say they entirely don't matter, but people, in my opinion, spend way too much time like looking at the decibels and how little the decibel rating is. You guys have to understand, like, what was the exact grain of ammunition that the factory tested that suppressor with that decibel meter. Did they put the meter where it should be in front of it? Did they put it at the shooter's ear? Did they put it off to the side? Did they do the proper testing? These are all things. I would equate it actually to velocity ratings on boxes of ammunition. You know, velocity ratings. What gun were they shooting it out of? What barrel length was it? Where did they have the chronograph to test the velocity coming out at the factory? These are all things that might give you a general understanding of how it performs, which is great, but don't base your entire decision off of decibel ratings on the company's website, because it's going to be all over the place. So that gives you a good idea. Don't go off that entirely. What should you get first for a caliber? Should you get a pistol can, rifle can, 22 rimfire can? I always recommend to people, this is just me, a lot of people might argue with this, and please do, I'd love to have a conversation about it in the comments here. I would recommend for your very first suppressor, either going with a suppressor that can kind of do it all, so rifle, pistol, rimfire, all in one, great, very expensive a lot of the time, but ultimately great suppressors. Or if you're not going to do that, go with a pistol suppressor first. Why do I recommend going with a pistol suppressor first? I'm trying to say this in the way that's going to be least aggressive towards a lot of people. In my opinion, rifle suppressors are not that impressive. I gotta say, I have a Silencerco Omega. It is a phenomenal suppressor. Does it quiet down a lot of noise? Yes, absolutely. Can I get it down to hearing safe on a couple of different guns? Yeah, absolutely. Is it impressive? Is it anywhere near what people in the NFA world call movie quiet, right? No, it's just not. Is it awesome? Is it cool? Does it look sick? Yes. If you have never heard a suppressor, is it going to be like blow your mind quiet? Not at all, depending on the caliber. Are you shooting a 300 Blackout subsonic? Yeah, that'll be really, really quiet and probably blow your mind. Are you shooting a semi-auto 308? It's still pretty freaking loud. It's still pretty freaking loud. If you're shooting a 5.56, it's kind of like borderline hearing safe depending on the setup that you're running it on, but they're not that impressive. On a pistol suppressor, on the other hand, there are a lot of calibers with pistol calibers that you can get impressively quiet. 45 gets impressively quiet out of the box. It can get very close to movie quiet. Most of the time, you do not have to have hearing protection on to a lot of setups with a pistol suppressor. Subsonic 9mm, again, very, very, very quiet. You could even do kind of a fun little setup on a small little 380 or something like that. Again, very, very quiet. What makes these things quieter than a rifle suppressor? Generally, it's the speed of the bullet that's coming out of it. Most 45s out of the box, not even subsonic ammunition, are traveling in subsonic speeds, which are below like 1,000 feet per second as a base. So below 1,000 feet per second, it's traveling slow. It's not giving you that sonic just crack of the bullet whipping down range and breaking the sound barrier. It's a lot harder to achieve those very slow speeds out of something like a 5.56 that's going, I don't know, what's a standard velocity of a 5.56, like 2,300 feet per second, like 2,400 feet per second, depending on the load. That's doubling the amount that like a 45 is traveling at. So if you're looking for a suppressor to just be fun, to plink around with at the range with no hearing protection, and to just kind of experience what it sounds like, and to be able to like kind of have the freedom to, I say freedom ironically because having a suppressor is one of the you'll see the process. It is far from a free process to have a suppressor, but the freedom feeling to take your hearing protection off and just rail down range with a mag dump with no ears on, that's pretty cool. And you generally won't experience that with a lot of calibers with a rifle suppressor. Still cool, still awesome, there's still a lot of practical uses to a rifle suppressor, but blow your mind quiet, it is not. So that's why I generally recommend pistol cal cans for your first can. A lot of people ask me, well, Joe, what about 22 cans for your first can? Those got to be super quiet. Those are crazy quiet. 22 suppressors are laughably quiet. It is one of the few cans out there on the market that truly are movie quiet. I mean, it truly is the little at the range, and depending on caliber setup, depending on ammunition choice setup, whatever, it's very quiet. It's a blast. The big downfall to rimfire suppressors, if you don't have an ultrasonic cleaner, which is like a big vibrating tub of cleaning solution that cleans it over time, they're kind of a nightmare to take apart and clean. The lead in 22 suppressors, if you are just shooting lead round nose and you're not familiar with how dirty 22 cans get, anybody watching right now that has suppressors, has 22 cans, will know that dirty is an understatement. It is a nightmare. You break this thing apart after 1,000 rounds and just lead everywhere. Lead, scraping it, picks and whatever. If you have an ultrasonic cleaner, just plop right into the ultrasonic and it's good to go. The downfall is that I do not have an ultrasonic cleaner and I have to clean mine by hand, brush, solvent, whatever, in a little Tupperware jar so I can catch most of the lead. But this is kind of a nightmare, and that would be another reason why I would kind of recommend a pistol cal can, because it's easier to service, it is quieter, cool, fun, and it's a really good choice overall. The one thing that I will say about 22 cans and how dirty they get is you can actually kind of get around this by using something like CCI Clean subsonic ammunition. The box is actually marked clean. And those are actually like polymer coated bullets, and that is actually going to be a little bit cleaner running, so you won't have as much lead coming off. 22s are very, very dirty, and if you're choosing non-plated lead round nose, it's really, really bad, and you will only do that once through your suppressor after a 1,000 round range day before you get what I mean, where you'll start shooting just clean subsonic ammunition through your 22 can. Another reason 22s get so dirty is the bullet is traveling so slow through a 22 can that generally a lot more gunk just gets left in the suppressor and not blown out by a lot of gases. On a rifle suppressor, you actually generally don't have to break them apart and clean the baffles. In fact, many of them are welded together for added strength, but they are actually somewhat self-cleaning because of the high pressure and the gases going through. It actually kind of blows out the end a lot of the carbon and lead and debris that's inside the suppressor, whereas pistol cans, kind of hit or miss. They're not really self-cleaning. A lot of them you have to break them apart and clean them. Let me just catch up on your comments there. What's your favorite rifle QD mounting system? Is there a system that works with multiple brands of suppressors? That is a phenomenal question. So what this gentleman or lady, I couldn't see your tag there, but this person is asking is what mounting system would be best, right? So on a rifle suppressor, there's many quick detach mounting systems. I have the Silencerco ASR mounting system. There's a lot of hate thrown on the ASR mounting system by a couple of other suppressor companies out there and other people. Fingers crossed, I have never had an issue with the ASR mounting system. In fact, I actually kind of like it. There's a big catch to the ASR mounting system by Silencerco. You twist on your suppressor and you lock it down. The lockdown is very, very important, and this is something of a process that you do not want to go fast with and not pay attention to, because if you don't thread it down all the way, or you think you threaded it down but you really didn't because you're talking to somebody or whatever else, and then you kind of like just like slightly lock it into place, it will launch right down range, and you're going to have a really bad day because it's not locked into position. So I've never had a problem with the mounting software or system of the ASR mounting system, but you know, could you run into an issue? Maybe. Surefire offers a pretty crazy hardcore lockdown mounting system that does a pretty good job, but I have seen it get seized on a good bit. Quick side note on your mounting system, I would always put grease. If there's threads on your muzzle attachment, I would grease the threads. Always grease the threads on any threaded part of your suppressor to help prevent against seizing. Don't forget this. You're going to regret it if you forget that. So grease the threads. But yeah, other than that, I mean, Q offers a bunch of really good muzzle attachment systems. Dead Air, again, really good systems. There's not many that are cross-platform usable. However, many have the same thread pitch as other adapters so that you can put in other quick detach adapters. Q made one of those adapters called the Plan B for the ASR muzzle brake system that can switch out for their taper style mount that's apparently more reliable, won't get seized with carbon, whatever else. But it's really all a personal preference. I don't mind the ASR brake, but you know, there's a lot of other really good quick detach systems out there. The bulk of my experience has been on the ASR. The only one that I'm not a huge fan of is AAC's 51 tooth quick detach ratcheting system. The 51 tooth mount has been proven time and time again to being quick, but not being reliable in preventing baffle strikes, because that system is kind of like inherently known, don't know if that's the right word, whatever, you guys get the point, but it's known for moving. It has like you're not going to see it with your eye, but if you had a super slow-mo camera, it kind of has a wobble to it, and that's a downfall with the 51 tooth mount. All like 7.62 SDN6s and other things utilize this mount. I love AAC cans because to me they're just really classic and cool looking. So it's more so a look thing. They're very good. They're high quality in the sound reduction. It's just that mounting system that really doesn't work too well. You will see a lot of different baffle strikes with AAC cans out there on the market. Generally, it's on the end cap. A lot of the time this happens because of that 51 tooth mount. So, you know, I would say that mount is going to be slowly left in the past, so that would be the only one I would really like kind of avoid. Chemo is the future. Manufacturers know and make adapters for it. AKA the devil, absolutely, man. I would say Chemo from Dead Air is an incredible mounting system. There's going to be a lot of other manufacturers going that route as well. Dead Air generally really hits it out of the park. They make some incredible cans. Well, we could talk about this now while we're on the topic, but whenever you're looking at muzzle attachments for a rifle suppressor, Rockset. If you utilize blue Loctite, right, it's going to come right off and it's going to get seized in the can. So in other words, this is your muzzle attachment, right? This is the can. Okay, so I just got the can on. Here's my gun, right? If I use blue Loctite, what's going to happen is I'm going to be shooting, having a fun day, pewing along, and then I'm going to try to take my can off, and then what's going to happen is I'm going to be a little bit pissed, and then it's just going to come right off and get seized into the can, and I'm not going to be able to get it out easily, depending on the break. If you use red Loctite, chances are, especially if we're talking about a rifle suppressor, that you are going to get that red Loctite hot enough that it is not going to work effectively either. In other words, it will not hold your muzzle brake on with the suppressor. So, Roxette is a very unique material that actually gets tighter with heat. It does not loosen with heat, it gets tighter. So once you get that Roxette on, it's not going anywhere, and then as you are shooting the suppressor, the hotter that Roxette gets, actually the firmer the hold is going to get on that muzzle brake. So that is why companies like Silencerco and many others send their muzzle brakes actually with a small little bottle of Roxette or a little tube of Roxette in the box for you to use. You're going to want to use that. The other nice thing about Roxette is it is not entirely permanent. You can actually soak the muzzle attachment, like kind of, diagonally into a little bucket of warm water overnight, and soaking it in water actually removes the Roxette. Crazy enough. So heat makes it pretty hardcore. Water, lukewarm water, warm water, whatever, overnight actually breaks it up, makes it not that big of a deal. You can avoid that as long as you torque it properly, torquing it stronger than when you manually mount the suppressor. That's also a great point as well. It really depends on how you're torquing the muzzle device on. Roxette kind of alleviates any problems just to make sure, but yes, torquing it properly as well is very important. Side note, do not use crush washers when you are mounting a muzzle attachment for a suppressor. Ever. Some people get confused. They see other people out there on YouTube mounting a muzzle attachment, and they utilize a spacer, and people assume that it is a crush washer. There's a big difference between a spacer with a reliable shelf and a crush washer. A crush washer is inherently not concentric. It is not. It makes your muzzle device go all over the place. You have to mount a muzzle device either just directly on the shoulder of the barrel itself, or utilizing shims to time it properly. You cannot use a crush washer. This is so unbelievably important. It's not even funny. I have personally witnessed somebody with a brand new Silencerco can, I think it was a Spec War mount on their SIG 716, their first muzzle brake. Somebody mounted it for them, utilized a ASR muzzle brake with a crush washer, mounted the can, first couple rounds out of the gun, baffle strike immediately. After a year of waiting, $200 spent, everything like that, first range day, first couple rounds, boom, baffle strike because of the crush washer. So again, I've seen it firsthand. A lot of people, for some reason, back when I did that, what I learned from Suppressor's video, somebody's like, oh, you can use crush washers. Good luck on that one. I would not recommend it. What's your favorite 9mm suppressor? Oof. I love my Dead Air Ghost. It's a 45 cal can. I shoot 9mm with it a lot. It's a modular suppressor. To me, it checks off all the boxes. I absolutely love it, and I love the aftermarket mounting accessories that Dead Air offers. So for me, it'd be the Dead Air Ghost. Moving down the list here. Big question a lot of people have. Can you suppress an AK? And we're going to tackle a couple different things with this question. One of the first things that you're going to realize very, very quickly when you get into the suppressor world is that not every gun is going to be able to run suppressed at all. A lot of things change with the suppressor and the gun when you put those two things together, as far as pressure, gas, blowback. A lot of different things change that sometimes the gun was not engineered for. So don't be surprised if you automatically assume, like I did before I ever owned a suppressor, that as long as it had a threaded barrel, I'm good to go, I can suppress it. A lot of the times, that is not the case. It's just not. When you put a suppressor on the gun, internally, you have a lot more pressure going back into the bolt carrier group, going back into the breech of the gun, and then also going back into the recoil system of the gun. If the gun is perfectly tuned and engineered to run not suppressed, there's a good chance that when you put a suppressor on the end of that gun, it's going to increase the back pressure, and you're either going to get an unreliable gun that you have to really like kind of, you know, tweak a bunch of different little things to get it to run reliably, or it's actually going to break. You're going to break the gun overall by it basically beating itself to death. A lot of the time, this is not as much of a case with handguns. With general semi-automatic handguns, you really shouldn't have a problem. The only one that's a little bit of a pain in the butt is 1911s, because with 1911s, you have to kind of fit a threaded barrel if you don't already have a threaded barrel already. Every little piece and part in a 1911 generally requires a bit of hand fitting, so that can be a little bit of a pain in the butt. But aside from that, most standard semi-automatic pistols are going to run fine. It's when you get into pistol caliber carbines, some might run well, some might not. It's when you get into the oddball guns, certain setups like AR-10s. A lot of the time with AR-10s, unless they have an adjustable gas block, they cannot run suppressed well a lot of the time. 5.56 ARs, I have never had a problem with. I've been able to slap a suppressor on any standard 5.56 AR that I have in my collection without modifying the gun, and I've never had a problem. Sometimes are they overgassed? Yes. Have I ever seen any increased wear from that? No. Not on my standard 5.56 guns. 300 Blackout, same deal. I have not had an issue, haven't had to modify anything, slap the can on, good to go. And when you start getting into roller delayed setups, MP5, PTR 91, 308 setups, anything with a roller delay, it really becomes an issue. The delay has an issue, the gas has an issue coming back. Anything that is very finicky and needs to be run exactly how it's set up from the factory, again, you're going to run into some issues. That leads us into the question I get a lot, which is, can you suppress AKs? Are AKs a viable option to suppress? Yes and no. Suppressing a foreign-made 7.62 by 39 AK, E-Rock, what's up, man? Suppressing a 7.62 by 39 foreign-made AK, oof, makes me kind of pucker up a bit. That is, you're taking a risk with a standard 30 cal can. Can you do it? Yes. Will you need an adapter for your suppressor to work on the thread pattern of either 14 by 1 left hand, 24 by 1, whatever else? Yes, you are more than likely going to need an adapter. Griffin Armament is the only one I know that is actually ballsy enough to make an adapter for their standard 30 cal suppressors to work on AKs. Why is it that none of these companies make threaded adapters for AK thread patterns? It's because I puckered up a bit when I answered that question, that they don't make those threaded adapters because of how risky it is to just slap a can on there. So AKs, incredible guns. Generally, foreign-made AKs do not have to have concentric threads, meaning the center of the barrel, where the barrel is ending, the crown of the gun, the threads around it don't necessarily, I mean, if the barrel's like ending here and the threads are like here, that would be not concentric. Does it matter? Not really. Not many people are running them suppressed. When you slap a suppressor onto that, I've seen many suppressors die that first round out of the chamber because they nail a bunch of baffles, and that's it. So first and foremost, you have to make sure your threads are concentric on your AK. A lot of suppressor companies out there know that threads are not concentric on AKs, and they know that a lot of people aren't going to check this, So therefore, they don't even make thread patterns for a lot of their muzzle brakes for AK thread patterns. With that being said, it's a relatively simple task to check and see if they are concentric. You would want to buy the attachments, thread on your suppressor, and buy a Geisley, I think they call it like a concentric check rod or something like that. Geisley makes one. You can also just buy the rod, like a metal rod that's properly made from the factory to be perfectly straight, and slide the rod down the barrel and through the suppressor. That is going to show you your path of the bullet, and if it is properly aligned, you're going to be good to go. Hopefully. Some people have done that and still got a baffle strike. Why is this also very, very challenging, even if the threads are concentric? Because 7.62 by 39, surprisingly enough, is actually ever so slightly larger in diameter around, in the circle around, than a standard 308, 300 Win Mag or whatever else, because of the design of the bullet. So this has even less room for error moving down the suppressor than a standard 308. So this is a big problem, obviously, as well. Aside from that, if you get all of that to work properly and you get it concentric, bullet passes through, you're good. AKs are ridiculously loud guns just as a whole. If you want to kind of experience this, just go grab your AK, no hearing protection, just rail the bolt back a bunch of times, let it fly home. It's a loud gun. Everything's loud. It's just loud. So when you put the suppressor on there, not only do you have the loud noise of the action, but you have what's called port pop, and that is because by where the piston is in the gas tube on an AK, and this can happen in the ejection port as well, you piston pop, whatever. When that piston is moving forward, a lot of gas escapes out of that where that piston setup is, and that can create a pop as well, and it's just loud. The whole setup is loud, including the rounds being supersonic generally. There is 7.62 by 39 subsonic ammunition, but ultimately, long story short, if you're really interested in running an AK and you want to do it in the safest way possible, suppressed, you're better off getting like a Wolverine PBS-1 suppressor from Dead Air that is designed like the original AK suppressors to be properly set up for AKs. They can handle the pressures, they can handle the non-concentric bores generally to a point, obviously, and that would be the better choice. I would not just grab your brand new rifle suppressor and slap it on your washer and think you're good to go. Chances are you're probably going to get a baffle strike. It is what it is. You can kind of alleviate some of these problems by trying to suppress a non 7.62 by 39 AK, meaning a 5.56 or a 5.45 by 39. Both might be viable choices to suppress without any issues because you have a little bit more room to work around with inside the can. Ultimately, there's a lot of cool AK setups to run suppressed. I might experiment with it in the future. I would not recommend it for a beginner because there's a lot of potholes that you can fall into where you destroy your can. So it's not necessarily the best option out there. With that being said, with a US-made AK, Palmetto State Armory, whatever else, there's a way higher chance that the barrel on that is going to be concentric. It's going to be properly threaded. That's not to say that foreign-made barrels are bad in any way, shape, or form. In fact, most of the time they are better, by far better. It's just not the best when it comes to suppressing an AK. So with this last little bit of time that we have, hopefully you guys have enjoyed this live stream, by the way. I know it's not as like fun all over the place, but I think it might be helpful to a lot of you guys. Is it worth it? Is it all worth it? The $800-900 you could pay for a suppressor, $200 for the tax stamp, year wait, being on a national registry, having to deal with buying accessories, messing up, not understanding, putting it on the wrong gun, your gun breaks, cam breaks, something breaks. There's not a lot of help out there because a lot of people aren't really into the suppressor world, so you can't just ask your buddy Joe Schmo and see what he thinks about the suppressor because a lot of people just have no idea. Is it worth it? Oof, that's a tough question to answer, and it's one that you are going to have to answer for yourself. For me, I'm glad I experienced it. I'm glad I experienced it. I'm glad I learned with it about the NFA, because without that learning, I would have never been able to truly express to you guys just how unconstitutional the NFA is. So I'm glad about that. I do have fun with them at the range. I mean, I was just at the range today with my HK45 Tactical and my Ghost 45M suppressor on the end of it. That's an incredibly fun setup. It's very, very quiet. I can take my ears off. I can just plank around at the range, and it's a blast. So it is really fun. Ultimately, I'm happy I got the rifle suppressor just to mess around with it, experience it. But I don't know if it's that fun for me to bring the rifle suppressor to the range, because generally I'm wearing hearing protection anyways with the rifle suppressor. It's still really, really loud. So it's kind of fun to just be like, ooh, look at this setup, suppressed, it looks cool, sweet, whatever, I have a suppressor, cool. But as far as like, man, this is awesome, rifle suppressors just generally don't really do it for me that much unless I'm running it 300 blackout and I'm running it subsonic, which at this point in time, 300 blackout is quite literally by like throwing little nuggets of gold downrange every single time I pull the trigger. So that's not really helpful to me right now. Arsenal, what is up? What is up? Thoughts on tri-lugs? I love the idea of tri-lugs. I think they hold down your pistol suppressor incredibly well. And I think they work out great. In fact, I'm going to be, I can't show you guys guns here on YouTube live streams. That's so ridiculous. But I'm going to be putting a tri-lug adapter on my Pullman State Armory PX9 and getting the tri-lug attachment for my Ghost 45M, because I think that's just going to be an incredible setup overall. So tri-lugs are so much easier to deal with than like threading on the suppressor each time and getting loose. And everything like that. So tri-lugs, awesome, love them. Any other questions that you guys have in the last 3 minutes that we have here on the live? Did you guys find this helpful? Do you want a part 2? Do you want to hear more? Do you not want to ever hear this again? I don't know, man. Let me know. Let me know what you think. You see how much 9mm ammo is going for on Gunbroker, like 70 cents per round for range ammo. Absolutely, man. I have been disgusted, quite frankly, with ammunition prices, and I don't see them coming down anytime soon. It has dramatically affected how I run things here on my channel. I used to go to the range and test a gun with like 600 rounds per gun for one range day, and now I go with like a box of 50, and that's like all I can do. So you know, it's dramatically changed quite a bit how I go to the range, how many other people go to the range, and I don't see it changing anytime soon. Best 22 LR can. For 22, I have the Silencerco Sparrow. It works really, really well for me. I've had no problems with it. It's a monocore design. The baffles on the inside, or the monocore, I should say, can be dunked in a sonic cleaner, so that's really cool. There's a lot of different 22 cans out there. There's a bunch that are like super modular, like the Q Erector. That's a really cool can. You know, with 22 cans, you don't really have to worry about like, oh, which one is quieter, because they're all really freaking quiet. I would just make sure with the 22 can that you get one that you can take apart. That's very, very important. If you can't take apart the 22 can, don't buy it, because you're not going to be able to clean it. Without cleaning a 22 can, it's actually going to be done after maybe 10,000, 20,000 rounds, depending on the ammo that you shoot, because it'll be completely leaded up on the inside. Not a good idea. So you want to be able to clean them. This has been very helpful. Hey, thank you, man. Alexander, thank you so much for watching. I'm so happy it's been helpful. Guys, I think I'm going to wrap this live stream up now. One more question. I see I've joined way late. Just got the notification. Oh, well, maybe next time. Hey, that's all right. We're doing them every Sunday, but honestly, that is probably YouTube I don't know, shadow banning me out of existence, because that's been happening a lot this past week. So if you haven't seen any of the videos that I've posted, go to my account, go to my page and see, because there's a good chance that you have probably been taken off notifications from my videos. I don't know why it happens. It happens all the time. Crazy. But guys, If you have any other questions, please throw them down below. You guys know I absolutely will get back to you. If you want to see anything else, let me know what you want to see on next week's live stream, and I will make it happen. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, check out the links down in the description to the Firearm Freedom Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram account. We do daily posts on all three of those accounts that you guys are not going to want to miss. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great night, and stay tuned for more great videos to come soon.